Good day.
Hello, good day. Whom are we speaking with today, please?
Ethan.
Hello, Ethium. It's nice to be seen and speaking with you again.
Yes, as it is with you.
Thank you very much. I have a list of questions for you before I start asking those. Is there any specific message that you would like to convey to us today?
To those that perceive this message, this transmission, we would like to integrate some of the particular energy that the channel was bringing through earlier, the idea of dragon energy, the idea of expansion of oneself with integration of knowing and embodying the idea of different energies that flow through you. Coming from a grounded place to know that you can ground energy into your life that is of a higher level, bringing it down from that understanding to the physical world to embody it as a example to others.
Well, I love it. Thank you. Would you like to give an example of how one may access such energy and then bring it down and ground it like you just told us?
Being willing and knowing that the energies that flow through you can be questioned. Know that your experience, whether it is real or not, being willing to embody it and live the experience. Being willing to show yourself fully and honestly. When you can fully embody the idea of dragon energy, that ancient energy, you will expand your awareness, your timing, and your ability to live fully.
Thank you. What would how would you describe in simple words dragon energy for me to tune into?
Dragon energy is that which is expansive. It is a much higher level energy that has dipped itself into your reality on multiple occasions in your history. It has never fully expanded itself and fully physicalized itself. It has shown itself, but it has not fully physicalized itself. The imagery that you have throughout your history is that which is in accordance with what each person that depicted the energy. The positive aspect of the dragon is that which you see in your Eastern world.
Right.
And the more anger, the more negative aspects, the wrathful version of a dragon energy is that which you see in your European areas. These are two sides of the exact same energy, but we would ask you to embody the middle, the one that understands and is able to connect to both the positive and negative and understand that it is the balance point in the middle, that you can bring that energy into your life that gives you the ability to be assertive and integrate it into your life without hesitance.
Thank you very, very much for this. And you're correct. The West does depict dragon as negative, sitting on a bunch of gold. But what is really the lesson from the quote unquote negative or aggressive dragon?
How to embody the idea of knowledge. The negative aspect, which is represented through the Western way of being things, it is the idea of greed.
Greed.
Yes, you're being shown a higher level version of greed because gold represents the idea of eternity, that which does not corrode. You're being shown people harvesting and hoarding the idea of that particular vibration.
Thank you for this. Now, on the east side, on the positive side, what would that dragon would represent?
The idea of water, the idea of embodying wisdom, the idea of moving through life in a smooth way without hoarding, without holding on to the physical life, because that particular energy does not hold on to the past. It does not hold on to the future. It understands and lives more in the present with its understanding of being.
That is fantastic. And what would the middle portray?
Understand that you can be physical and have things in your life, whereas the more water-based, you let things flow. So understanding that you can have things in your life, but also not hold on to them as so greatly that it hinders your life and causes you to be in a greedy state.
This is really beautiful. I wrote have and flow.
Yes. You can have the flow, be in the flow.
This is beautiful. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we begin the questions?
No.
Thank you very much. My first question today has to do with going back to the times of the Israelites in the desert once they pass Egypt. And I've noticed that in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, there are 2 depictions to the God. Usually one is called Yahweh and one is the Elohim. Could you explain to me if this is the same entity and what this entity or entities are, please?
It's 2 aspects of the same energy. You have the yin and yang. You have this symbol in your culture, and you have had it for many years. It's balance.
I see. Does one name depict one polarity, such as female, and the other the male?
Yes.
Well, if I had to guess, I would say that Yahweh is the male.
Yes.
And the Elohim would be the female then.
Yes. And in your society, in your culture, the feminine has been demonized and driven to the negative aspect.
True.
You're being shown the balance.
So the Yahweh would be the equivalent of the dragon negative energy, and the Elohim would be the equivalent of the positive dragon.
Yes.
Very good. I see.
In all that is, it includes all that is, all particular types of energy. It does not leave anything out. It does not allow you to not be expanded in your awareness and your ability to connect to all that is.
Understood. Thank you. I've watched another channeler channeling Elohim. What exactly was channeled there?
The idea of Elohim is more of the understanding, as many of the different channelers that are coming through on your planet right now, they're more expressing the idea of balance. They're being shown the positive and negative aspects, that each energy is a complete energy, which it contains both aspects.
I see. Thank you. I wanted to ask you, Ethan, about I've noticed to see more channelings on YouTube. YouTube is where we share the videos, I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And I've noticed more and more channelings. Could you say it's my observation is correct?
Yes. This is the process that you are moving through at this time, because you are moving up vibrationally. YouTube, as you determine it to be, is a worldwide platform. It allows and creates a full network around your planet. We express ourselves through the throat chakra of the channel, and he connects to all of you. So Many of these channels work as a net around your world to expand and grow the awareness for those that need it, and gives the ability to connect to more aspects of yourself. And also it drives out less desirable beliefs by connecting more of you in a positive way.
Thank you for this. I spoke with a lady in Israel who's an intuitive lady, and I mentioned yourself and Kenneth, and she said, "Oh yeah, we spoke with him." I was wondering if you or other entities that you know speaking to. I mean, I'm sure you speak to other channels in all countries, but do you specifically speak with other channels around the world right now?
No, I speak through this channel specifically because it was deemed an appropriate time for this channel to be activated.
Thank you. I see. And is that for the Bashar only speaks through the one channel as well?
The Bashar that you have spoken about, he has spoken through a few people randomly, but he does not typically move through anyone else other than Daryl.
Thank you. Okay, back to the Israelites. There's a character in the Bible named Moses.
Yes.
Was that a real person? And can you tell me a little bit about what that character represents?
Moses represents the ascended master, the person that has moved to the stage of the teacher, the guide. He was a real person. In that particular lifetime, he did lead his people through a desert. He lived long enough to allow 2 generations to exist past the time of leaving Egypt, to allow the older generation to die off, the ones that initially left Egypt, and move past the idea of being slaves. For if they had entered Israel as slaves, they would have created a more negative slave-like society. So by allowing them to grow and allowing them to move in through the desert and allow a few generations to be born, it allowed them to come through as free people versus the negative aspect, which was slaves.
Thank you very much. This is what my father told me as well. That is very interesting that you picked on that. When the Israelites were in the desert, they ate the manna. What was it?
The manna was produced from a machine. It was a moss and algae. This is where the idea of your 7-day work week comes from. You're resting on the 7th day. It is where they took apart the machine and cleaned it.
Thank you. My father told me that the legend says, or the tradition says, that whatever you'd imagine the manna would taste like. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, the machine that was given to them at that time allowed them to create essentially whatever they wanted to. It was worked on a vibrational basis. And because it was not necessarily the technology of the people at that time that was given to them, they could essentially create it to be whatever they needed it to be able to be appetizing, because it was not necessarily the food that they were used to.
Thank you. And that machine, in our language, would be probably called replicator, like from the videos.
Yes, but not quite that advanced where it could create dishes. It just created a edible substance that was nutritional, that did not require the people to die or have to go hunting for their food.
Where did that machine come from?
It was delivered to them by an extraterrestrial race.
Which race, please?
Palladians.
Pleiadians. What was the reason, or why would the Pleiadians provide the machine? I guess they must have been involved in the Exodus as well then.
The Exodus itself was guided by different guides for Moses. He was a channeler himself. He was an intuitive. He was guided by his guides and being given information.
Thank you. When Moses and Aaron, this is in the Torah, so the Moses and Aaron came before the Pharaoh and all these wise men and magicians, and the wise men and the magicians for the Pharaoh could not make one magic, but Moses and Aaron made their stick into a snake. What's that story and the meaning of it, please?
The primal nature. He did not literally turn his stick into a snake, but it was the idea that he could make them see an actual snake, even though it was just a stick. He was able to project an image into the mind of the people in the room that allowed him to show that there was a snake. And when he picked it up, it was merely what it was. But what they saw was an image that he placed into their minds.
Thank you. And the 10 plagues, what are those?
The 10 plagues that you refer to was actually because he was on the channeling side of things, a psychic, as it were. A volcano was erupting on your planet about that time. So he took advantage of the understanding that came with the intuitive nature of his being, that he was able to determine when said things were going to happen. So he was able to say this was going to happen because he could foresee it ahead of time.
I see. So that gave him special powers in the eyes of the people who cannot access that information.
Yes.
I see. Thank you. But there are some plagues like the frogs falling down, or the rivers turning to blood, or what's that?
The rivers turning to blood was merely the volcanic ash that was coming up through the riverbeds at that time. The idea of the frogs falling down was water spouts. There was much more practical reasons for all of these different things to happen, like the plague of locusts, because of the volcanic becoming more active at that time. It caused already existing locusts that were in that environment to become more active, which covered entire areas where they would not normally be. The idea, the oldest child being killed, because Moses himself could see and know and gain insight into those things happening. He was able to warn his people so that they would not die from drinking polluted water.
What about
there are practical reasons for all those things occurring at that time.
Okay, thank you. That is very, I never thought about it this way, but so it basically some sort of a chain reaction happened and Moses was able to access and describe it.
Yes.
What about the lice?
With the rodents, with the idea of frogs, because there was an increased amount of activity from the wildlife in that particular area, it brought lice in with them. So they were in that environment more frequently. Yes?
Yes.
There are practical reasons for all these things. Understanding that he, at that time, was able to take advantage and understand that if you were more cleanly, if you were able to drive these things out, you would not experience the idea of death. You would not experience the idea of hardship because he was able to take advantage of what was happening at that time.
Thank you. What was the ark?
The ark was that which produced the mana. It was a machine.
Was it just one of those or more than one?
There were several.
I saw a documentary that claimed there's an ark in Ethiopia somewhere, and they have to tie up the person that guards it, and they died because of some radiation.
That particular ark is leaking radiation because they do not allow anyone near it to repair it. It is a malfunctioning machine.
Thank you. What happened to the rest of the arks?
They have been taken throughout your history to different places on your planet, away from the original locations.
Do they still exist?
Yes.
In a working condition?
Yes.
Does anyone use them or access them?
Not in recent times, but they do still work.
Thank you. And that would be 2,000 or 3,000 years old, these machines?
3,000 years old.
That's fantastic. Can you please tell me the meaning of Jerusalem? When the Israelites came to Israel, they had two kingdoms, and then King David, if I recall, united them and said Jerusalem as the capital. But why there, and what's the uniqueness of this city that seemed to capture everyone's attention?
That particular environment, that particular place is the epicenter of the Orion energy that entered into your planet. There has been many wars centered around that particular spot throughout your history on your planet. Yes?
Yes.
That is the epicenter of that particular energy.
And what is the uniqueness of the Orion energy, please?
It is through the ancient Orion systems. Inside of their civilization, they almost killed themselves. They almost completely destroyed their civilizations, their people. Because of systems like yours, they were able to work out the idea of war, of darkness, of negativity. The energy that came to your system first was in what you determine the asteroid belt in your solar system as Meldek. And when Meldek destroyed itself, because the energy was too strong, it moved to Mars. And when that version died as well, it moved to Earth. And the first location that it moved to was the area of your Middle East.
Okay, so that specific energy, I see, it made all these rounds and ended up in what we call Jerusalem.
Yes, that is why you are seeing the particular conflict in that area right now on your planet, because you are working out and finishing up that energy.
That makes a lot of sense. How can we bring peace to the region, energetically speaking?
This energy needs to be worked out practically. Unfortunately, as you move forward, there are the idea of exits for people, of deaths.
Are you foreseeing more continuation of the war in the region?
For a few more months.
What would happen after?
The idea of a peace of sorts, less intense. There may be some conflicts that arise, but you will see a smoothing out of energy after that time.
Thank you. It seemed to me that, speaking from far away here in Canada, it seems to me that both cultures on both sides, both the Israeli and the Gaza Palestinian cultures, are struggling with their own governance and how they use their people's funds. Do you think I'm in the right direction here?